You want to know the truth. The only way you fail is if you quit. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're moving forward, it's not over. Never giving up doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you unstoppable. People always ask me, how do you keep winning? How do you keep pushing when others fall off? And the answer is simple, but it's something most people refuse to accept. It's not about talent, it's not about luck, it's not even about having the right connections. It's about consistency, relentless, boring, painful, day in and day out consistency. The problem is, most people can't handle that part. They want results, but they don't want repetition. They want rewards, but they don't want the routine, and that's why they lose. I wasn't born rich. I wasn't handed anything. There were nights I went to bed hungry, nights I sat in the dark because the electricity bill wasn't paid, nights I questioned if I was ever going to make it out of the situation I was in. Do you know what kept me going? The fact that quitting wasn't an option. I didn't care how tired I was. I didn't care how unfair the world seemed. Every single day I had to wake up and do something. Train, work, learn, build. And here's the truth. Most days didn't feel like victories. Most days felt like I was running into a wall. But here's what separates winners from losers. The losers stop hitting the wall. The winners keep hitting it until the wall breaks. Consistency is not exciting. Consistency is not glamorous. People look at success and they think it's fireworks. They think it's fast cars, money, glory. That's the highlight reel. What they don't see are the endless hours behind closed doors, repeating the same discipline over and over again while nobody is clapping for you. When I was training to fight, there were days I'd wake up sore, battered, bruised, barely able to lift my arms. And in those moments I had two choices. Either I lay in bed and make excuses like everyone else, or I get up, push through the pain, and stay consistent. And every time I chose to get up, I added another brick to the foundation that built my career, my mindset, my life. People say, but it's hard. Of course it's hard. That's why most people won't do it. That's why most people live average lives, sitting around complaining about the world being unfair. Consistency doesn't care about how you feel. Consistency demands you show up whether you're happy, sad, tired, broke, or broken. I've been all of those things, broke, tired, broken, and every single time I kept showing up. And that's the reason I'm standing here while most of the people I started with have faded into nothingness. You've got to understand something. Consistency is the enemy of mediocrity. It destroys it. Because mediocrity is built on excuses, on comfort, on stopping the moment things get uncomfortable. Let me tell you a story. When I first started fighting, I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the most gifted. But I made myself a promise. No one was going to outwork me. I would be there earlier. I would leave later. I would push harder. Day after day, I was the man who refused to stop. And slowly, the results started to come. I became sharper, stronger, smarter. People who were naturally better than me in the beginning started to fall behind because talent without consistency is nothing. And I had consistency in my blood. There were countless times people told me to quit. It's too dangerous. It's too hard. What if you get hurt? I heard it all. But I also knew this. If I quit, I'd be living with the regret for the rest of my life. And regret is a far heavier burden than discipline. Pain fades, exhaustion fades, even failure fades, but regret, that stays with you forever. I was never going to carry that weight, and here's what I realized. Consistency doesn't just change your results, it changes your identity. When you push yourself to show up every day, you stop seeing yourself as weak. You start to believe you're capable of more, and once you start believing that, the world opens up. I went from being broke, sitting in a small room with nothing, to building a life where I control my time, my money, my freedom, not because of luck, not because I won the lottery, because I refused to stop showing up. So when you ask me, what can you achieve if you never give up? The answer is anything, absolutely anything, but only if you're willing to embrace the grind that no one claps for, the lonely work when nobody is watching, the endless repetition that feels like it's going nowhere. Because the truth is, it's always going somewhere. You might not see it now, but every rep, every hour, every sacrifice is stacking up. And one day, when everyone else has fallen off, when everyone else has given up, you'll be the last man standing. And that's the difference, not talent, not luck, consistency, relentless, unforgiving, never-ending consistency. People run from pain like it's the enemy. The moment life gets uncomfortable, they quit, they retreat, they search for an easier path. And that's why most of them will never taste greatness, because the truth is, pain isn't the enemy. Pain is the proof you're growing. Pain is the signal that you're pushing past limits most people are too weak to touch. If it doesn't hurt, it's not changing you, and if it's not changing you, it's not worth it. When I was coming up, I didn't have comfort. I didn't have security. I didn't have the luxury of sitting around waiting for life to get easier. There were days I woke up in a freezing room because I couldn't afford heating, days I went hungry because food wasn't guaranteed, and I'll be honest with you, it was painful, it felt unfair. I'd sit there some nights, staring at the ceiling, wondering why life seemed to hand everyone else a better start while I was stuck fighting for scraps. But here's the twist, that pain became my advantage. Because every time I endured it, every time I pushed through it, I got stronger. I didn't know it then, but all those nights of suffering were forging a man who couldn't be broken. When I stepped into the gym, I learned quickly that the same principle applied. If I wasn't pushing myself until my lungs burned, until my muscles screamed, until sweat poured down my face, I wasn't improving. Comfort never built a fighter. Pain did. Every bruise, every busted lip, every broken bone, it wasn't just damage, it was evidence of growth. I remember one fight where I took a beating early on. My jaw hurt, my ribs felt like they were cracking, and every part of me wanted to quit. But in that moment, I realized something. If I quit because of pain, then pain owned me. And I refused to let pain control me, so I fought through it. I finished the fight, and I walked out of that ring knowing that pain had given me more than it had taken away. Most people don't get this. They think pain means stop. They think pain means failure. But pain isn't failure. Quitting is. Pain is feedback. Pain is your body, your mind, your life saying, you're going further than you've ever gone before. It's proof you're doing something right. The reason the majority stay average is because they refuse to embrace this truth. The moment it gets hard, they back off. The moment it gets heavy, they drop the weight. And because of that, they never grow, they never evolve, they never escape mediocrity. I want you to think about this. What if every moment of pain in your life was actually a blessing in disguise? What if every heartbreak, every loss, every failure, every sleepless night was life sculpting you into someone stronger, tougher, sharper? That's exactly what it is. The greatest version of yourself is buried underneath layers of pain, and the only way to reach it is to dig through that suffering without giving up. I've lost fights, I've lost money, I've lost people I cared about. I've been betrayed, doubted, laughed at, written off. Each time it hurt. Each time it felt like life was pushing me to my knees, and each time I stood back up. That's the difference. That's why pain doesn't scare me. I welcome it because I know if I can handle pain, then I can handle anything. And if I can handle anything, then nothing can stop me. People always ask me, how do you stay strong? And the answer is simple. I learned to love pain. I learned to see it not as a punishment, but as a weapon. Pain carved me into the man I am today. Without it, I'd be soft. Without it, I'd be weak. Without it, I'd still be the broke kid staring at the ceiling, wondering why life was unfair. Pain gave me discipline. Pain gave me hunger. Pain gave me the mindset to never quit. So when pain shows up in your life, don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Don't use it as an excuse to stop. Let it shape you. Let it harden you. Let it fuel you. Because the more pain you endure, the stronger you become. And the stronger you become, the closer you get to becoming unstoppable. Motivation is a trap. Everyone waits for it, but it never lasts. Motivation is like a spark. You feel fired up for a moment, then it burns out and you're left in the dark. That's why people never get anywhere. They chase motivation like it's fuel, when in reality, the real fuel is discipline. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline doesn't need permission. Discipline is what gets you up when your body screams no, when your mind tells you to quit, when life throws everything at you to make you stop. Without discipline, you'll never achieve anything that actually matters. When I was younger, I used to think motivation was the key. I'd watch someone successful, feel inspired, and tell myself, tomorrow I'll do it. and tomorrow would come, and I'd feel tired, or distracted, or unmotivated. And nothing happened. That's when I learned that waiting for motivation is the same as waiting for luck. You're handing your future over to chance. Discipline is different. Discipline is the decision that no matter how I feel, no matter what's happening around me, I do the work. Every single day, no excuses. When I was training as a fighter, there were mornings I woke up broken. My knuckles were swollen, my ribs were sore, my legs felt like concrete. Do you think I felt motivated to train? No, most days I felt like staying in bed, shutting the world out, but motivation wasn't there to save me. Discipline was. Discipline is what forced me to lace up my gloves, step into that gym, and push myself harder than I thought possible. And every day I chose discipline over comfort. I became sharper, faster, stronger. That's what separates winners from losers. The losers wait to feel good. The winners act regardless. There was a time when I was completely broke. No money, no comfort, nothing but the weight of failure on my shoulders. Do you think I was motivated to keep working when I could barely afford food? Do you think I was motivated to keep pushing when I felt like the world was against me? No, but discipline doesn't care if you're broke. Discipline doesn't care if you're tired. Discipline doesn't care if you're scared. Discipline demands that you keep moving forward no matter what. And because I obeyed discipline, because I kept showing up when everything in me wanted to quit, I built myself out of that hole. This is the truth most people don't want to hear. They want the easy path. They want to feel good before they act. But if you only work when you feel motivated, you'll accomplish nothing. Imagine if a soldier only fought when he felt motivated. Imagine if a parent only took care of their child when they felt motivated. Life doesn't work like that. The people who dominate, the people who win, are the ones who treat discipline like oxygen. They can't live without it. The beauty of discipline is that it creates freedom. At first, it feels like chains. You're forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. Waking up early, training when you're exhausted, working when everyone else is relaxing. But over time, those chains turn into wings. The discipline you build gives you strength. It gives you options. It gives you control over your life. Because once you master discipline, you can outlast anyone, outwork anyone, outfight anyone. I've seen fighters far more talented than me fall apart because they relied on motivation. They'd show up when they felt good, disappear when they didn't, and slowly I overtook them, not because I was better, not because I was luckier, but because I showed up every single time. Discipline beat their talent. Discipline beat their motivation. Discipline always wins in the long run. You want success. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for some magical burst of energy to carry you. It's never coming. You have to build a system inside yourself that ignores how you feel and just executes. That's what I did. That's why I kept going when I had nothing. That's why I kept training when my body was breaking. That's why I kept working when there was no reward in sight. And in the end, that's why I won. Discipline is the greatest weapon you can ever possess, because when the motivation dies, and it always dies, discipline is the only thing that keeps you moving forward. Failure is one of the most powerful teachers you'll ever have, but most people don't want to listen to it. They take a loss and immediately label themselves as losers. They stumble once, and they convince themselves they're not good enough. But failure is not the end. Failure is feedback. It's life holding up a mirror and showing you what needs to be fixed, where you need to sharpen yourself, where you need to grow. The only real failure is quitting. As long as you keep going, every setback is simply fuel. When I started fighting, I didn't win every match. I've been knocked down, I've been beaten, I've been left lying on the canvas with blood in my mouth, wondering if I had what it takes, and I'll be honest with you, it hurts. It's humiliating. In that moment, your ego wants to break, but every single time I lost, I sat down afterward and studied. What went wrong? What mistake did I make? Was my guard too low? Was my timing off? Did I underestimate my opponent? That process was painful, but it was also priceless, because each defeat was a roadmap to my evolution. Every time I came back into the ring, I was smarter, sharper, and more dangerous than before. The truth is, I wouldn't be the man I am today without those failures. If I had won every fight easily, if everything had gone smoothly, I'd be soft. I'd be arrogant. I'd be blind to my weaknesses. Failure forced me to confront them. It forced me to improve. It forced me to become relentless. People see the victories, they see the highlights, but what they don't see are the endless nights after a loss, sitting in silence, body aching, replaying every mistake in my head until I carved out a way to fix it. That's the grind, that's the transformation, and it's not just fighting. I've failed in business too. I've made bad investments, trusted the wrong people, taken risks that didn't pay off. I've lost money I couldn't afford to lose. I've been betrayed by people I thought were allies. Each time it felt like a punch to the gut. But instead of curling up and quitting, I took those lessons and used them to build stronger foundations. I learned who to trust, how to adapt, how to move sharper in the world. Failure was the fire that burned away my naivety and replaced it with experience. The problem is that most people don't have the stomach for this. They let one failure define them. They let one mistake crush their entire self-belief. They treat setbacks like permanent scars when they're really just scratches on the surface. Do you know how many times I could have quit? After losing fights, after being broke, after being rejected, after watching others succeed while I struggled, quitting would have been easy, but I knew that every single failure carried a lesson, and if I didn't quit, I could extract that lesson, use it, and come back stronger. That's what separates winners from everyone else. Winners don't fear failure. Winners use failure. When you fail, it means you're trying. It means you're pushing yourself into new territory. It means you're on the edge of growth. And the edge is where greatness is built. Comfort never teaches you anything. Success never forces you to change. But failure forces you to evolve. I remember one particular fight I lost badly. My face was swollen. My pride was crushed, and I felt like the entire world was laughing at me. I had two options. I could let that loss define me, or I could let it drive me, and I chose the second option. I trained harder than I ever had in my life. I studied every detail, every weakness, every flaw in my game, and when I came back, I destroyed my next opponent. That victory only existed because of the failure before it. Without that loss, I would never have grown into the fighter who could win. Life works the same way outside the ring. You're going to fail in relationships, in business, in your personal goals. But if you see failure as the end, you're finished. If you see failure as fuel, you're unstoppable. Every setback is a step forward if you choose to learn from it. That's how you build resilience, that's how you build wisdom, that's how you build power. So don't fear failure, don't hide from it, don't let it break you, because failure is nothing more than the sharpening stone of greatness. Every cut it leaves on you makes you sharper. Every burn it gives you makes you tougher. Every time it drops you to your knees, it's preparing you to rise even stronger. The world doesn't respect excuses. It doesn't care about your reasons, your struggles, your sob stories. It only respects results. And the man who never quits, the man who stays in the fight no matter what, that's the man the world eventually bows to. Persistence is the great equalizer. It beats talent, it beats luck, it beats timing. Because talent without persistence is wasted, luck without persistence is fleeting, and timing without persistence means nothing. Persistence is the one quality that guarantees that eventually you will break through. When I was broke, nobody respected me. Nobody cared about my ambition. Nobody wanted to hear about my plans or my dreams. They looked at me like I was another failure, another man talking big but living small, and I don't blame them. The world doesn't clap for effort, it claps for achievement. But here's the thing, I didn't quit. I stayed persistent. Every single day, no matter how dark it got, I kept working, kept grinding, kept moving forward, and slowly the tide began to turn. The same people who ignored me when I was struggling suddenly started paying attention when they saw the results. Persistence forced them to respect me. When I was fighting, I wasn't the most naturally gifted athlete in the room. There were guys with faster hands, better reflexes, more natural strength, but most of them didn't last. They'd come in hot, train hard for a while, then fade out when things got tough. I stayed. I kept showing up. I took the beatings, I took the losses, I took the pain, but I never walked away, and because of that, I outlasted them. Persistence became my greatest weapon. While they relied on talent, I relied on persistence, and in the end, persistence always wins. You've got to understand that the world tests you. It wants to see how badly you really want it. That's why it throws obstacles in your way. That's why it makes the climb so steep. Most people fall off. Most people say, it's too hard, it's not fair, it's not worth it. But the man who refuses to give in, the man who keeps climbing even when his legs are shaking, that's the man who makes it to the top. And when he gets there, the world can't ignore him anymore. There was a time when I had nothing but persistence. No money, no recognition, no comfort, just persistence. I remember walking in the cold, hungry, trying to figure out my next move, and the only thing that kept me going was this thought: if I keep moving forward, eventually I'll break through. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I trusted persistence, and I was right. Step by step, inch by inch, day by day, persistence created opportunities, persistence opened doors, persistence built the life I live now. The funny thing is, people love to talk about respect. They want people to respect them, they want recognition, they want validation, but respect isn't given for free, it's earned through persistence. People don't respect the man who talks, they respect the man who proves. They don't respect the man who starts, they respect the man who finishes. They don't respect the man who shows up once, they respect the man who never leaves. That's why persistence is so powerful. It forces people to take you seriously. Even when I was at the bottom, even when nobody cared, even when I felt invisible, I kept telling myself, if I just keep going, they won't be able to ignore me forever. And that's exactly what happened. Because persistence turns you into a force of nature, you become undeniable. The world has no choice but to notice you, to respect you, to acknowledge that you refuse to break when everyone else did. You want respect, don't beg for it, don't demand it, earn it through persistence, earn it by showing up every single day, no matter how you feel, earn it by refusing to stop when everyone else does, earn it by proving that you are the last man standing. Persistence is the reason I climbed out of poverty. Persistence is the reason I became a champion. Persistence is the reason I built everything I have now. Without it, none of this would exist. And that's the truth. You can have all the talent, all the connections, all the opportunities, but without persistence, it all crumbles. With persistence, you can build an empire out of nothing. When you refuse to quit, you become unstoppable. That's not some slogan to make you feel good. It's reality. The world can resist you for a while, people can doubt you for a while, failure can hit you again and again, but if you never give up, eventually, everything bends in your favor. Persistence is rare, that's why it's so powerful. Most people quit. Most people tap out when it gets too hard, and that's why the few who keep going become unstoppable forces. I've been in situations where everything told me to quit. When I was broke, when I was hungry, when I was sitting in a small room with nothing but bills I couldn't pay, it would have been easy to accept defeat. Easy to say, it's not meant for me, I tried and it didn't work. But that thought never controlled me. I refused to quit, even when quitting felt like the only option, and because I kept going, doors opened that would have stayed closed forever if I had given up. In fighting, it's the same. I've been knocked down, rocked, battered, beaten. I've had moments in the ring where my body was screaming to stop, where every instinct told me to stay down, but I never stayed down. I stood back up, and that decision, to keep going when everything in me wanted to quit, turned losses into comebacks and comebacks into victories. That's the difference. Quitting makes defeat permanent, refusing to quit makes defeat temporary, and if you never quit, you never truly lose. The truth is, life doesn't get easier, it will always test you. It will always throw storms at you, it will always try to break you, but if you refuse to break, if you stand tall no matter what, eventually life has to give in. I've seen this happen over and over. People doubted me, underestimated me, laughed at me. They thought I was done, but I refused to quit. And now, the same people who doubted me are the ones who can't ignore me. That's what happens when you refuse to go away. You outlast the doubt. You outlast the resistance. You outlast the obstacles. Think about it. What can stop a man who never quits? You can beat him down, but he'll get back up. You can close doors on him, but he'll find another way in. You can delay him, but you can't deny him. That's what it means to be unstoppable. It doesn't mean you don't take losses. It doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It doesn't mean life doesn't hit you hard. It means no matter what happens, you keep moving forward. That's why eventually success becomes inevitable, because the man who never quits is the man who never disappears. When I look back at the hardest times in my life, the moments where I had nothing, I realize now that the only reason I'm here today is because I refused to quit. I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the most talented, I wasn't the most connected. But I was relentless, I was unbreakable, and because of that, I became unstoppable. That's the lesson I need you to understand. You don't have to be the best at the start. You don't have to have everything figured out. You just have to refuse to quit. That one choice makes you unbeatable in the long run. And here's the part most people don't realize. Success doesn't come to the fastest. It comes to the one who refuses to stop. Life is a game of endurance, not speed. If you can outlast, if you can keep going long after everyone else has quit, you win. That's how I built myself. That's how I won fights. That's how I built businesses. Not by being perfect, not by never failing, but by never quitting. So when you feel like it's over, when you feel like you've got nothing left, remember this. That's the exact moment most people quit. And if you can push past that moment, you separate yourself from the crowd. That's the point where the world starts to realize you can't be broken. And once the world knows you can't be broken, it can't stop you. The only way you lose is if you quit. As long as you refuse to surrender, the world can't beat you. So stop waiting, stop whining, and keep fighting until you take what's yours.